Welcome back to another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the work week.
Day.
We made it. Meteorologist Stephanie Barakello and meteorologist Lisa Michaels here on a very cold Wednesday.
Yes, it has been a very cold week, in fact.
It has.
And I don't think it's been the best since we have the snow. We want to enjoy it, and we just can't in many areas because of the cold that's not leaving. That's the problem.
Right. I mean, we finally have snow on the ground, but it's been so difficult to actually enjoy it because the cold set in right away.
There was maybe like a 24-hour time period when that snow fell. Kids could go out and play in it. Wasn't the best packing snow, but great sledding snow. So
that is true.
If we warm up, the big question is, can the snow still stick around so maybe we can enjoy it?
Yes, I think that between warming temperatures and sunshine staying with us, I do think there will be some great opportunities for kiddos to get out and about. But the primary focus for today, and not just here in Wisconsin, everybody, this is all of the central U.S. We're talking all the way down to Texas, dealing with the cold. So this is the primary focus for this Wednesday. Frigid air across much of the central U.S. right now. These are current air temperatures. It is 16 degrees in Dallas right now. I know we want to look at some of these negative numbers because that is the dangerous cold, but it is very uncommon to even see teens as far south into parts of northern Texas. New Orleans, 46 degrees. So again, it's cold all across the central U.S. Now, Milwaukee, it's 10, St. Louis, 15, and once again, you can see those negative numbers across portions of Montana and the Dakotas, all the way down into parts of Nebraska, as well as Kansas. And then you factor in the wind, which in some spots is not so bad, but when air temperatures themselves are cold enough, it's not going to take much wind to make it feel colder. -4 the wind chill in Milwaukee, 17 below in Bismarck, Rapid City, 24 below. And there are still a lot of spots throughout the remainder of the day today under some type of extreme cold headline. Now, in the Milwaukee area and southern Wisconsin, we did have a cold weather advisory earlier this morning. It expired at around 10 o'clock. But look at everybody else down towards the south. So starting in, let's say, South Dakota to southern Minnesota, all the way down to the Gulf Coast here, places like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, if you look very closely, under those cold weather advisories, as well as extreme cold warnings for the conditions that we have right now. Forecast high temperatures, again, across mainly the central U.S., staying in the teens for most spots. I mean, only a high of 14 today in Milwaukee, 17 towards St. Louis, maybe getting to 30 towards Dallas, but even Denver, only about 18. So if you really want the warmth, you got to head towards the southwest. Los Angeles, a high of 63 today, Phoenix, right around 80. There is good news for those who are done with this cold. Now, today is going to be our bitterly cold day, but notice as we head into tomorrow, look at some of these warmer contours off towards the west. Notice into Friday how those start to move eastward. So by the weekend, we're going to see more of those 30s and 40s, and down south, 50s, 60s are eventually going to return. So to say the very least, we have to get through today, and then little by little each day, we're going to start to climb even more. And then, of course, by the weekend and early next week, that's when we really will feel noticeably warmer. And looking towards, extended ranges, extended forecasts, that is, it does look increasingly likely that we end the month of February across the upper and central plains near or above average. So for those of us in southeastern Wisconsin, say the Milwaukee area, average is still in the 30s. So we're looking at least 30s heading into next week. Hard to believe again. February, we only have a little bit more time to get through, but then even through early March, we could still hang tight to some of those, near average temperatures. When it comes to precipitation, I know we've got the cold today. The spots that have the cold are actually the quiet spots. There's a system out west coming into the Pacific Northwest, and then this messy system along the east coast now, the Virginias down through about northern Florida, that's still creating a bit of a mess, especially the spots that are dealing with some of the snow and some of the wintry mix. Zooming in on Wisconsin, you can see a little bit in the way of some light snow across the UP. We do have the chance for a few flurries flurries across the state of Wisconsin, we'll say, throughout the day today and throughout the night tonight, but that's it. The real mess, once again, is with this lingering system towards the East Coast. There is still snow across the Virginias, North Carolina dealing with more of a wintry mix, and then the farther south you go, flooding rainfall, unfortunately. And this system was west yesterday and the day before that and did create quite the issues across those spots. We do still have some winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings where that system is producing more of that wintry mix as well as towards the snow. The good news is that by later today, it's pretty much done. And then just that quick look out west with that next storm system, that's actually going to dip south in the coming days and fizzle. So it's not going to impact those of us in Wisconsin at all. We have a pretty dry forecast all the way into early next week, I'd say at least. So that system out east, that moves back out over the water later on tonight. You can see the system out west starting to dip towards the south, the spots that want the snow, think skiing, all those ski hills. Those are the spots that are going to get some good snow out of that storm system, and then it pretty much starts to fizzle, and we stay dry here locally and across much of the Central Plains, heading at least into the weekend. So looking pretty good here locally. It's just the cold that we got to get through. And even on that bigger picture level for those across the U.S., really looking at some fairly quiet conditions, plus that warm up, again, heading on into the weekend. So that's the very latest when it comes to the weather forecast. We have plenty more that we are going to talk about on this episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. Lisa, do we have this package?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I didn't actually.
We were trying to see. We were actually going to talk about something really cool in terms of the clouds and the temperatures, because we have, again, a lot of cold air.
Yes.
We are dealing with, do we have this, by the way? I guess we can ask quickly. Can someone tell us? Okay.
We don't. Okay.
So we don't have
That's
this.
fine.
That's
we'll just talk about it real quick because it's pretty cool.
So, kind of like how we're showing the satellite and radar, right? We can see those clouds streaming across even when you're forecasting it. We have a variation of things we can use, kind of like this, where it can change the clouds different colors based on the temperatures. And what we were noticing, the National Weather Service actually tweeted this out, was that the areas that were very cold, the Dakotas, Minnesota, even Wisconsin, looked like it was clouds covering all the states because it was so cold. So essentially, what the satellite was picking up on was the temperatures actually themselves were 30, 40 below, and that's the same temperature as the clouds are in some areas. So it's thinking that, hey, well, the whole area is covered by clouds across the Midwest, and in fact, it's not. So
clear.
Kind of some really cool things, but that's why we have meteorologists here. While you can look at a weather app, while you can look at a weather model, the models aren't always right, and sometimes even the satellites, things can be very deceiving. So we are here to kind of decipher and pull apart those bits and pieces and inform you of what the weather really is going to be. I mean, even when we have severe weather, for example, sometimes it can look like there's, again, a tornado spinning, but is there really a tornado on the ground? Well, that's where we go to our viewers to give us information. So the people, us, our viewers, are a big necessity when it comes to forecasting weather. And this was just kind of a cool example today of what we had. Oh, there we go.
Okay, here's a still image of what we were talking about. So it's hard to just look at it. You see a lot of blue, you see a lot of green. But as Lisa mentioned, this is one of those satellites that's picking up on cloud cover. So what it's essentially showing is cloud cover that's not there because it's detecting very cold temperatures that would normally indicate cloud cover.
Correct. So it does animate, but still really cool because it looks like we're really cloudy in the Midwest, and that's just all cold air near the surface. So again, one of the cool things we get to look at, we don't get to show on air as often, but kind of a little tidbit behind the scenes.
And it just goes to show just how cold it has been, especially across the upper plains. And as we obviously just talked about, we're going to warm up from here. So always fascinating to see what is going on across the U.S. and especially across our area. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We have plenty more we're going to talk about, especially when it comes to wind chills and the cold. Stay with us. All right, welcome back, everybody. We were talking so much earlier about the cold. It's been a cold winter, absolutely, but this is some of the coldest air we've had of the season.
Yeah, we've had one other shot of this in January, and that also prompted some cold weather advisories. But now that we've had 3 consecutive days of cold weather advisories here locally, and I think I can speak for everyone, we're ready to push that cold aside, are we not?
We got the snow, let's play in it,
Yes.
and then we'll see what March and the start of meteorological spring holds for those of us in southeast Wisconsin.
Corner.
Oh, it sure is.
I know.
Let's talk about some of the wind chills we had this morning, though, across southeast Wisconsin. Just a list for you here of a few. Waupun, 27 below. Oof. Oh, my goodness. Fond du Lac, 26 below. Plymouth, 24 below. Waukesha, about 22 below. And Jackson, similar numbers as well. And even at this hour, you know, we're not in the 20s below zero anymore, but we still have a lot of spots, at the very least, in the single digits and low teens below zero. So this bitterly cold air, you know, it is still going to stick around for today. And, you know, we talk about wind chill all the time. And it's for good reason. You know, in the summertime, we talk about heat index values and how that moisture and dew points make our bodies feel. It's kind of the same, but the opposite in the winter. Wind chills truly impact how our body can react to the cold and how we really feel.
Yeah, and it can be very dangerous whether we're talking about the cold or the heat. But of course, being winter, it's all about the cold. And that can lead to, again, the hazards within itself of, as you mentioned, how your body reacts, which can be very problematic. Unfortunately, that can lead to illness, that can lead to fatalities, and we have them every year. So one of the things we're going to talk more about in depth is what is wind chill and really how does it impact your body?
Yeah, let's take a look at this really cool graphic. Now, this kind of takes you through the science of what wind chill is. I know it's still, you know, a little of a controversial topic, especially with the changing of the criteria years and years ago. But we promise you, wind chill, just like heat index, is real, and it is very important. So, you know, the basic concept here, we know that our body emits warm air, but there is a process that, you know, cold air takes over. That's called convection. And that happens with no wind at all. You know, the big problem is that once we start to see some of those stronger winds on top of very cold temperatures, that really impacts how we feel, and it really escalates the process of frostbite as well as hypothermia, which is why we always stress so much. Yes, the air temperature may be, as you can see, 20 degrees in this image, but then you add in, you know, a 20-mile-per-hour wind, and the feel-like temperature is then only in the single digits. And we know based off of the past couple of days, it's more extreme than what this graphic is showing. We're talking, you know, air temperatures in the single digits with a 15-mile-per-hour wind, and that means below zero wind chills.
And with the winds, you know, you can see by that little guy there shaking, it really pulls the heat away from your body at a quicker rate. So whether you have, again, cold temperatures and lighter winds, or temperatures that are mild and really cold wind or really strong winds, they both can bring that heat away from your body at a quicker rate. And when we talk about, again, that wind chill being impactful and covering up your exposed skin, it's everything. The more exposed skin you can cover up, the less heat you're going to have pulling away. I mean, it will still pull away with layers, but it will really kind of keep the heat in as close to your body as much as you can.
Yeah,
and we
it's
want
to insulate you a little bit more, which is why we always stress even just the simplicity of, like you said, layers. And the gloves, the hat, the scarf, the face masks, if you really are going to be out and about, maybe doing some winter sports or taking that walk to the bus stop or hanging out at the bus stop. Even it seems so simple, but it is so beneficial.
And actually, some people even wear, I've seen skiing or snow goggles that they wear over their face so that their eyes don't burn. I mean, these are all things, every part of your body does not obviously have hair or feathers on it like animals to insulate you, which is also why we have jackets with feathers in them, such as down. But you really want to make sure that you're bundled up. And I know it can be a pain. If you go back thinking of the movie, what is it, The Christmas Story, where he doesn't want to wear all the layers going outside. I know it's hard to put on, but it is so worth it, and to make sure that you're going to be okay and not get injured.
His mom was onto something.
Yeah, I know.
We promise that. But the reason, again, why we stress the importance of wind chills and, you know, preparing you guys for especially dangerous wind chills is because of the process of frostbite and hypothermia. Now, Zoe this morning had the opportunity to talk to some doctors about some of the specifics when it comes to both frostbite and hypothermia. So let's hear from Zoe.
We can do many things to protect ourselves from hypothermia and frostbite, but just to kind of put into emphasis, or just to emphasize just how dangerous it is, even moderately cold temperatures can cause your body to lose heat really quickly, especially in combination with wet clothes and the wind chill. Even your age plays a role in how likely you are to get either condition. And while both conditions are related, they have different characteristics. Frostbite, for example, is when the skin and underlying tissues freeze, and it usually affects the fingers, toes, ears, and nose, and it can happen in as little as 5 minutes. Now, hypothermia, on the other hand, is more severe. That's when your core body temperature drops below 95 degrees. It kills hundreds of people across the country every year, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's a big concern for the Medical College of Wisconsin, especially during cold stretches like this that we're currently experiencing.
This is serious. I think people kind of dismiss hypothermia a little bit, or cold related injuries. And I just like to, say this is a pretty significant cause of mortality in the United States every year. And it's usually in days like today.
If you notice signs of hypothermia or frostbite, prepare to get out of the cold, wind, rain, or snow as soon as possible. In the newsroom, Zoe Chapala, Fox 6 News.
All great information. And it's good too. I know those graphics were so, or those images were so graphic, but it does help to know the signs, because then you know what's happening and you know you need to take action.
And hey, I'm sure you'd rather have more layers on in the struggle of getting them on rather than having that which those people had in the photos. Ugh. Yeah. Feel bad for them.
Absolutely. So stay safe out there, and know it will get better. But even with the warming temperatures in the next couple of days, morning temperatures and wind chills still going to be a bit on the dangerous side. So still take those proper precautions the rest of the week. All right. Well, we're talking below zero wind chills and air temperatures. Why not talk about negative dew points? Yes, negative dew points are a possibility. Meteorologist Tom Walks has some pretty interesting information on those.
Well, we often get the question, can the dew point drop below zero? Now, before I get into this, I want you to save this and watch this in the middle of August when dew points are between 75 and 80, and you're saying, oh, it's so humid outside, because this is the opposite of that. So first, let me define what the dew point is. Dew point is a measure of moisture in the air, and we measure it by degrees, and in this case, degrees Fahrenheit, much like we do with air temperature. So right then and there, you know the answer of, can the dew point drop below zero? Well, the air temperature can drop below zero, right? So the dew point can drop below zero. Granted, it usually only happens when you're really entrenched in an Arctic air mass. So take a look at these dew points here from the February time frame, showing dew points well below zero. And this is low. I mean, this is very, very low. Anytime we get dew points below zero, it's indicative of very dry air. So think about that for a minute. In August, when we're talking about dew points in the mid-70s, oh, it's so humid outside, right? This is the opposite of that. This is the skin cracking type dry air, or you might get a lot of static electricity, a lot of shocks, right, when you touch a metal doorknob or something like that, because the air is so dry. So take a look at these February temperatures here. Note how cold it is across the central U.S. into the upper Midwest. So not only is it very, very cold, but it is also very, very dry. So again, these lower dew points or very dry air comes along with the Arctic air mass. So what that means is it's not only bitterly cold, but it's extremely dry. So it's a part of this polar or Arctic air mass that spills in from Canada. So again, yes, it is possible. It doesn't happen overly often, though. It'll only happen in the coldest time of the year here in Wisconsin. Typically, you're not going to get dew points this low until you hit usually the January to February time frame, which is climatologically speaking the coldest time of the year for us, and also the driest time. Now, if you have a weather question for us, scan the QR code. We would love to hear from you and answer your weather questions. Again, we get great questions here from our viewers, and, you know, just like with the dew point, dropping below zero. If something has been kind of getting you wondering, thinking about the weather, let us know, and we will answer it here on Wisconsin Weather Experts.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
It's lotion time after that.
We were talking about this. When you have dry
Would you like
air,
some?
oh, just a little bit. There we go. When we have air this dry, and Steph and I relate a lot, we are always back here putting on
Always.
lotion. It's the dry
Constantly.
skin, the dry lips. I've been waking up with some nosebleeds, actually,
Yes,
especially
same.
if you don't have a humidifier in your house. So all these things are still impactful to your body. Even if you're not outside in the cold, that dry air still gets into buildings as air circulates.
Right.
And then we have impacts in other ways like dry skin.
Exactly. So much that goes along with winter in Wisconsin, right? We all just have to deal with it. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how bright it can be.
Well, welcome back to your Wisconsin Weather Experts. We've been talking a lot about the cold this week, dangerous cold. We just learned from Tom about negative dew points, and we're still having the mindset of winter, obviously. But have you noticed when you go outside and it snows and it's very white on the ground, but then the sun appears and it is blinding?
Yes.
Definitely dangerous if
You
you're
need
traveling sometimes.
sunglasses.
You need sunglasses. And I feel like even when I'm inside and I have my curtains open, I still need sunglasses because you get those blind spots that you have. So we're going to talk about reflectivity from the sun and why is it so blinding when we have snow on the ground?
Because it's fascinating.
It is. It's a really, really cool topic. If you think about, again, reflectivity, the sun, the energy from that, it actually goes into the ground. And when we have green grass, like most of the year, 75% of that sun's energy is absorbed into the grass and the ground. 25% of that is then reflected back into space. So green grass has what we call an albedo. It's a depiction of reflectivity that is 0.25. That means it's a low albedo because we are only having 25% of the energy of the sunlight received back into space. Now we're going to flip it around here. Winter months, just like what we've seen, January and February of this year, snow is on the ground. When the clouds move out and the sun shines, we still get the same premise. That energy from the sun goes into the ground, but because that snow has a high albedo of 0.8, 20% is only absorbed into the ground and 80% of it is reflected back into space. So we have a lot more of that sun's energy reflected back into space, and because of that, that is why it is so blinding. We talked a little bit about earlier too, Steph, that higher reflection, that actually can also burn your skin a lot quicker. So even though it's not summer, we can still get sunburn in the winter. We also can put this in terms of the summertime. When you wear a white color, you're cooler because more of that is being reflected versus if you have a dark color on, such as a dark green, blacks, kind of like when we had the grass and starting off this image, more of that is absorbed. So you get hotter in the summer wearing some of those darker colors. You are cooler in the summer wearing lighter colors. And in the winter time, not necessarily you're going to feel warmer or cooler sometimes, but it's just the blinding reflectivity that makes it really hard on your eyes when we have snow and sunshine combined.
And that's the biggest impact, especially for a commuter, first thing in the morning, especially. That sun glare can really be dangerous too, because I mean, think especially if you have a dirty windshield and you have the sun glare, you cannot see your surroundings. So it is always important to note that when snow is on the ground, number one, protect your eyes. And number two, just protect yourself so that you're actually aware and can see when you're out on the road.
Yeah, that's the most important thing for sure. And we even have it during the evening commute as well. But again, multiple impacts for winter. Besides the cold, we also, again, have that reflectivity, which you wouldn't always think of why that's going to be a hazard. That and the dry air can still be hazardous to our bodies as well. So a lot of information just to try to stay safe and get through the winter months.
Yes, and to stay warm, because also when snow is on the ground, as we just talked about, keeps the temperature colder as well. So an extra reason to bundle up, as you know, it's always going to be cold when there's snow on the ground. All right, we conquered a lot today. We have plenty more coming up tomorrow as well as Friday. And remember, you can always submit your questions to us as well. We have a QR code that you can scan, and we will get those questions sent to us. We'd love to dedicate some time to each show answering any questions. So we will see you tomorrow as well as Friday on Fox Local.